Most reality television stars spend their entire careers chasing camera time, but one man in the Texas Hill Country built a legacy by walking away from it. Joe Martin made his name not through volume or spectacle, but through what he refused to do, and that refusal turned him into something the custom car world had rarely seen before, someone the networks couldn't control. When Iron Resurrection premiered on Motor Trend, viewers expecting the standard reality television formula got something else entirely, a show where the actual work mattered more than manufactured conflict, where a welder's precision earned more screen time than a shouting match, and where the star spent more time looking at steel than looking at the lens. The custom car industry had seen plenty of television personalities by then, builders who understood that automotive restoration meant less to producers than heated arguments and impossible deadlines. Joe Martin came from a different school entirely. His background in motorcycle fabrication taught him that metalworking demanded focus that cameras only disrupted, and when Biker Build-Off first put him in front of an audience in the early 2000s, people noticed his bikes before they noticed him. Those machines carried flowing lines that looked carved rather than welded, finishes so clean they seemed to absorb light, and a level of craftsmanship that made other competitors look like they were rushing. Victory came not from playing to judges, but from respecting the metal itself, and serious builders across the country recognized immediately that Joe belonged to a rare category of fabricator who treated each curve and contour like it carried weight beyond the competition. What followed that win should have been predictable. More shows, bigger budgets, a path toward celebrity in an industry that rewards personalities over process. Joe Martin walked in the opposite direction. The television world he encountered during Biker Build-Off revealed itself quickly, with producers pushing for bigger reactions, faster builds, and storylines that had nothing to do with the work. Many participants embraced that model because cameras meant opportunity, but Joe saw the cost that came with trading authenticity for airtime. When Velocity Network approached him years later with the concept that became Iron Resurrection, his first response was skepticism rooted in experience. The pitch promised something different this time, a show centered on a working shop in the Texas Hill Country, featuring real fabricators instead of actors hired to look the part, with episodes built around actual restoration processes rather than invented drama. Joe agreed on a single condition that became the foundation of everything that followed: no staged conflict. His wife Mandy entered the project not as a character written into a script, but because she already ran the business operations at Martin Brothers Customs, handling negotiations and logistics with the same precision Joe applied to metalwork. Their dynamic on screen reflected years of partnership, not a relationship manufactured for ratings. And when crew members like Shag, Shorty, and Kato joined the cast, they brought genuine expertise rather than personalities designed to clash. Iron Resurrection launched with a promise that felt impossible to keep in reality television, that the builds themselves would generate enough interest to carry entire episodes without relying on artificial tension. Rust-covered vehicles arrived at the shop in various states of decay, and cameras documented the real challenges that restoration presented: frozen bolts that refused to break free, body panels too far gone to save, engines that required complete rebuilds rather than quick fixes. The timeline pressure came from the work itself rather than producers manufacturing countdown clocks, and when disagreements arose, they concerned technical decisions about fabrication methods instead of personal conflicts scripted into the schedule. Audiences recognized the difference immediately. What Joe Martin created went against every trend in automotive programming, where most shows by that point had learned to compress weeks of work into montages set to aggressive music, where camera operators zoomed in on shouting matches instead of welding techniques, and where the actual skill involved in custom car builds got buried under layers of manufactured drama. The decision to prioritize craftsmanship over content strategy came with consequences the networks made clear early on. Producers wanted faster episode turnarounds, spicier moments that could be promoted in previews, and emotional arcs that followed familiar reality television patterns. Joe refused all of it, and that refusal became its own form of tension playing out behind the scenes rather than on camera. The production schedule bent around Joe's standards instead of the other way around, which meant shoots took longer and editing rooms received less material designed for quick cuts and dramatic reveals. When builds weren't finished, filming stopped rather than creating fake deadlines. And when genuine disagreements occurred, they stayed between the people actually involved instead of being amplified into episodes. This approach built a loyal audience that appreciated being treated like adults who could recognize the difference between real craftsmanship and television theater. But it also meant Iron Resurrection would never achieve the explosive growth that networks preferred. The show found its people slowly, through word of mouth in the fabrication community, and among viewers tired of being sold spectacle instead of substance. Cast changes arrived without the fanfare that usually accompanies departures from popular shows. Shorty, whose paintwork had earned him a devoted following, stepped away from the series after the early seasons, and Kato followed not long after. No farewell episodes explained their exits. No official statements clarified what happened, and fans searching for answers found only silence. Speculation filled that void naturally, with theories ranging from contract disputes to creative differences to personal burnout from the demands of filming. The truth likely involved some combination of factors that don't translate into headline-worthy drama: family obligations that took priority, health concerns that required attention, or simply the realization that life under cameras wasn't sustainable long-term, regardless of the show's integrity. Joe Martin never commented publicly on these departures because turning personal decisions into media narratives would have violated the same principles that defined his approach to everything else. The respect he showed those crew members came through in his silence rather than through statements crafted for public consumption, and the shop adapted by tightening around the people who remained. Fans who initially felt heartbroken by losing favorite cast members eventually understood that the show's core hadn't changed, because that core was never about specific personalities, but about the commitment to doing work that mattered. The builds continued with the same attention to detail, and audiences who valued craftsmanship over character drama stayed loyal. Silence became Joe Martin's most powerful tool in an industry built on constant noise. Other television personalities spent their careers chasing interviews, responding to critics on social media, and turning every minor controversy into engagement opportunities. Joe welded instead. His approach to public relations consisted of letting finished builds speak for themselves while declining to participate in the attention economy that dominates modern media. Networks accustomed to stars who promoted themselves relentlessly found this frustrating because the marketing playbook depends on personalities willing to perform off-screen as much as on it. Social media growth stalls without regular posts designed to generate reactions, and in an entertainment landscape that measures success through metrics like engagement rates and viral moments, choosing privacy looks like career suicide. The people who watch Iron Resurrection aren't looking for drama, though, and that distinction matters more than any algorithm. These viewers tune in to learn techniques, to appreciate the problem-solving required when a restoration hits unexpected complications, and to witness the real thing getting done by people who know what they're doing. Every clean weld Joe produces serves as a response to critics who claim authenticity can't compete with manufactured content, and every episode that prioritizes process over personality proves that audiences exist for television that respects their intelligence. Joe Martin doesn't create content in the modern sense of that word. He creates craftsmanship, and the difference resonates with people tired of being sold shortcuts, dressed up as expertise. Mandy Martin's role in this operation deserves recognition that often gets overlooked when people discuss Iron Resurrection. From the first episode forward, she handled the business side of Martin Brothers Customs, while cameras focused primarily on the fabrication work, running numbers and negotiating deals, and keeping operations functional in ways that don't generate dramatic television moments. The garage industry has a long history of either sidelining women entirely or sensationalizing their presence for ratings, but Mandy carved out her space through competence rather than performance. She became the point of contact for parts suppliers, the deal closer when customers needed convincing, and Joe's most trusted partner in decisions that affected both the business and the show. Her choice to focus on substance over image in an industry obsessed with both makes her presence on the series quietly revolutionary. What happens when someone walks away from every shortcut the entertainment industry offers becomes clear through Joe Martin's trajectory. The path of least resistance would have involved leaning into television fame, building a personal brand through merchandise and paid appearances, and monetizing his name the way successful reality stars typically do. Other automotive personalities launched product lines and turned their shops into tourist destinations and treated every camera opportunity like a chance to sell something. Joe leaned into the steel instead, keeping Martin Brothers Customs as a working garage rather than a themed attraction, and letting his reputation build through the quality of work leaving the shop rather than through promotional campaigns. That decision cost him the explosive financial growth that comes from treating fame like a business opportunity, but it bought him something more valuable: respect that runs deep in the fabrication community. Young welders reference his techniques when they're learning metalworking, and painters study his finishes to understand what clean work actually looks like. Machinists watch Iron Resurrection not for entertainment, but for education, treating episodes like masterclasses in approaching complex restoration challenges. Garages across the country contain builders who consider Joe Martin a mentor despite never meeting him, because his influence comes through in every frame where cameras capture his focus on getting details right, rather than getting them done fast. The legacy he's building doesn't depend on social media metrics or streaming numbers. It lives in the work other fabricators do after learning from watching him. Iron Resurrection continues through changing seasons and shifting network priorities, surviving in an industry where most reality shows burn bright and disappear quickly. The production remains smaller than competitors, the marketing budget stays modest compared to flashier automotive programs, and episodes drop quietly rather than launching with major promotional pushes. None of that matters to the audience that returns, because they know what they're getting when new seasons arrive. The builds will be honest, the timeline will be real, and the people on screen will be genuine fabricators rather than actors playing parts. Joe Martin's presence holds more value now than it did when the show started, because he represents something increasingly rare in media: someone who survived the machinery of reality television without selling pieces of himself to make it work. Networks learned they couldn't micromanage him, audiences learned they could trust him, and the industry learned that alternatives to the standard formula can succeed when executed with integrity. The choice to prioritize quality over quantity means seasons arrive slowly, sometimes with gaps that stretch across years, but fans accept those delays because they understand the work can't be rushed. In a content landscape demanding constant output, Joe Martin's refusal to compromise on standards feels almost radical, like watching someone choose to walk when everyone else is running. That deliberate pace built something more durable than viral success, a body of work that will matter long after trends change and algorithms shift to favor different types of content. When the cameras stop and the grinders go quiet, what remains isn't a brand built on personality or a legacy constructed through self-promotion. The mark Joe Martin leaves on the custom car world comes through in every fabricator who learned that saying no to shortcuts matters more than chasing attention, that steel demands respect more than audiences demand drama, and that craft practiced with discipline creates impact no amount of marketing can manufacture. The Texas shop where he works stays focused on the same principles that defined it before television came calling, and the man himself continues showing up each day to put in the work without requiring validation from outside sources. In an industry obsessed with fame, Joe Martin chose craftsmanship instead, and that choice didn't just restore metal, it restored integrity to a corner of television that desperately needed it.